and welcome in to the Patrick Party Pregame show here on our Labor Day weekend kickoff as we really truly start the 2021 college football season. We're excited to be joined back for you, year 2 of Patrick Party Pregame. We have lots planned today. It's going to be a fun college football season every single Saturday morning. So we had quite an off season. We're going to run through all of that. We've had some great games. Last week, week 0, that big game with Illinois. Brett Bielema's first big win against Scott Frost and the struggling Nebraska Cornhuskers. And then we had some upsets last night, some great games on Thursday. That UCF game ended really late, lots of Auburn ties. But we're excited to be joined back with you. And we're going to go ahead and read through some of the results here from our opening weekend. We start on Thursday night. UCF beats Boise State 36-31. This game started way later than planned. There was lots of weather involved, all the things, all the rain. So they start later. Not a full house in the bounce house, but still a pretty good crowd. And the Gus Malzahn debut at UCF. So many Auburn tires in that one. That was one of the jokes, is how many times is ESPN going to mention the word Auburn between Gus Malzahn leaving from Auburn, going to UCF after being fired, and then Bryan Harsin being hired by Auburn, leaving Boise State. Wild that happens, and especially wild since they don't just make these matchups up a couple weeks before the season starts. This is playing years and years in advance, and it just so happens that all that happened this offseason. Then we had number 4, Ohio State beat Minnesota 45-31. Minnesota's really hanging on. They had a lot of breaks go their way. Very interesting game, but at the end, Ohio State's ability to score fast, to be able to, they would literally score in like 2 plays, and Minnesota, their grinded out offense. PJ Fleck really just wanted to run the ball hard and really grind on that Buckeye defense. That wasn't going to work when Ohio State's going out and scoring in 3 plays, and now your offense is right back on the field. So, Ohio State beats Minnesota, number 4 team in the country. Looked like they might have been an upset alert, but they weren't. Appalachian State beat East Carolina 33-19. Appalachian State looks to have another good team this year. This was in Charlotte, the Duke's Mayo Classic, whatever they're calling it, all the mayonnaise games. That was part 1. That was on Thursday night. And then, of course, part 2, we know what that is, and we'll talk about that in our Saturday slate. Then we have Tennessee beat Bowling Green in the start of the Josh Heupel era on Rocky Top. Struggling a little bit closer than I think Volunteer fans would have liked going into halftime. It was only like a 1-score lead, but ends up that Tennessee kind of grinds on them, especially their experience, their talent. They don't have a lot of experience. Was able to win the day in the second half. And then we have NC State beating UCF. NC State could be a sleeper team. A lot of people they could be a sneaky good team in the ACC this year. Kind of the tier under Clemson, especially with that North Carolina loss, which we're going to talk about next. Virginia Tech beat number 10 North Carolina 17-10 in Lane Stadium. Lots of the videos of the Inner Sandman, the whole intro, first time in 2 years, were going viral. It was packed at Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech just straight up beat them. To be completely honest, I didn't watch the game, but here's the thing: is everyone all this hype? We said all off season last year, we said all off season this year about how great North Carolina is going to be, and they're going to challenge Clemson. And Mac Brown's done a great thing. It's pretty incredible that he's turned North Carolina around into like a very respectable football program, because the year before he got there, they won like 2 games. But you got to take care of business against the Virginia Techs and the Pittsburghs of the world before we get to go talk about, slaying the giant in Clemson. But UNC falls 17-10. They were ranked number 10 preseason. We'll see where we go from there. Then we had Kansas beat South Dakota 17-14. Kansas didn't win last year. Kansas's first win since 2019. They stormed the field. As it was mentioned, good thing they just had people there to storm the field. Yay for Kansas. To be completely honest, I don't know who their coach is after the whole Les Miles deal. It's just like Kansas is Kansas. Good for them that they won a game. And then Michigan State beats Northwestern 38-21. I think a lot of people were surprised by this. I know Northwestern, they definitely had some transfers after the season, just because one of them went to Auburn. But they had some seniors that, graduated, blah, blah, blah. I mean, Pat Fitzgerald has a really great program, but here's the thing with Michigan State. I don't really think last year was a fair representation of how this could go under the new coach. But I'll say this, last year, the new offseason, all the things. I mean, Michigan State still beat Michigan in the Big House. Like, people forget that. Michigan State's going to be an interesting team to see. They really haven't been able to get back to that being kind of semi-competitive in the Big Ten, especially in that division since Mark D'Antonio left. But we'll see. I mean, maybe Sparty will have something in store for us this season. So those are our Thursday and Friday results as we kick off Labor Day weekend and the opening weekend, week 1 of the college football season. We want to talk about the Patrick Party for just a little bit and this one. So we have lots planned on the show for today. We're going to go through the entire Saturday slate. We got player profiles. We're going to go behind enemy lines, kind of look at Akron for a little bit, what to watch for in this Auburn-Akron game. Bingham's Bets is back. And then we'll make our picks, and we'll go ahead and tell you the location. We'll be making our picks from Bryce Canyon National Park, so it should be a lot of fun. Obviously pre-filmed earlier this summer, and then we'll have another fun location for our games on Sunday and Monday. So Patrick Party 2021, we'll be doing this every Saturday morning. So with that, let's go ahead and get into our Saturday slate. We have a great slate of week 1. We also have games on Sunday and Monday, so our Sunday slate, and then I guess you could call it like the Monday matchup. So we have lots of games to go through, and we're going to go ahead and just get right on into it. Big game, big noon on Fox. Number 12, Wisconsin hosts the number 19 Penn State Nittany Lions. Penn State has a couple big games to kick off the season. Of course, they play Wisconsin week 1 in Camp Randall Stadium, but then they also will play Auburn week 3, hosting at home in the whiteout. So this game, like we said, big noon on Fox. Wisconsin won the Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl. Mayonnaise, this is going to be a big topic on the show today. Won the Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl. Went 4-3 last season. A lot of Big Ten teams had very weird records. We'll definitely talk about that when we get to Penn State. 7th season under Paul Chryst. If you remember, Auburn fans, Paul Chryst was hired. Wisconsin, he was hired the season after Auburn played Wisconsin in the Outback Bowl, which is why Barry Alvarez coach, that was his last game again in that Outback Bowl that Auburn lost in overtime. I think it was 2 overtimes. So 7th season with Paul Chryst, 56-19. They have 8 starters and 23 letter winners return to that defense that was ranked 5th in the country in total defense, averaging 299.9 yards per game and 9th in scoring defense, 17.4 points per game in 2020. And then they have the return of their quarterback, Graham Mertz, the 6'3" sophomore, coming off a freshman season in which he completed 61.1% of his passes for 1,238 yards. And then there's a variety of awards that he's on the preseason watch list for. So Wisconsin looks to have a big season. And then Northwestern won the Big Ten West last season, playing Ohio State in the championship game in Indianapolis, but we'll see if Wisconsin and the Badgers can get back to that. Now for Penn State, they went 4-5 last season. Remember, they had the wild start. They start 0-5 to the season, and then they win their last 4 straight games. They didn't want to play in a bowl game. They're like, whatever. They ended the season with some momentum, despite the horrible start. They won 4 straight games to end the season. This is the 8th season under James Franklin since he came from Vanderbilt to Penn State. He's been 60-28 since he's been there. And then a little bit of series information for this Penn State-Wisconsin game. The Nittany Lions have won the last 4 meetings between the teams and 6 of the last 7. During Penn State's 4-game winning streak, the team has outscored the Badgers by 7.3 points per game. So it should be a fun one. This is one of the more interesting games of the day. I mean, I know everyone's talking about Clemson, Georgia, blah, blah, blah. This should be a really exciting game, and it'll be on at the noon hour, which is, I totally get why universities and teams and fans of teams in the Big 12 and the Big 10 and the Pac-12 don't love the big noon game, because who wants to play your big rival or your big game to kick off the season at noon? But for the fan who gets to sit at home and watch it, it's kind of fun because it spreads the games out. Alrighty, well, next up we have a game that's had all kinds of storylines this week. We have number 2, Oklahoma, taking on Tulane. So this game was going to be on Tulane's campus in New Orleans, but with Hurricane Ida, that game gets moved to Oklahoma Memorial Stadium in Norman. One interesting side note, and there's been a couple things that have come out on this. So Oklahoma did come out and say all of the ticket revenues, all the money they make off this game, they will be sending to Tulane. So at least they still make the money off the game, acting like it's a home game, even though it will be in Oklahoma. Tulane's the designated home team, and Oklahoma even painted on the 25-yard lines, I guess on the opposite little parts of where the Big 12 logo would be, Tulane's logo, I guess just to be nice. But let's go ahead and get into the football side. I mean, that's been all the storylines, the Hurricane. Hope everyone's better. But let's get into the football. So Oklahoma last year, they went 9-2. They beat Florida in the Cotton Bowl. The Sooners have won 4 straight season openers. And then they've gone 15-0 in their first game of the year since losing to TCU in 2005. Redshirt sophomore quarterback Spencer Rattler. I feel like we're going to hear a lot about him this year. One thing with him, they lost the first 2 games last year. And that was one thing when I was just typing all my notes out and noticing so many of these teams were so streaky last year. Like, they'd lose the first 2 games, and with COVID and practicing, I mean, I get that. But then they would go on to, win the next 5. Same kind of deal with Oklahoma. They lose the first 2, win the next 9 in a row. So Spencer Rattler, we've heard him. We've definitely heard his name this offseason. Everyone's like, oh, he's going to win the Heisman. Oklahoma's going to be great. I mean, they blew out Florida in the Cotton Bowl. Now, we'll talk about if was Florida really in it. I mean, they were playoff or bust, it kind of felt like last year, which I don't get. You're playing in the Cotton Bowl. That's a big deal. Why would you not play in that game? Anyways, all that to say, Oklahoma should be really good this year. Their defense was good last year, and that's a key. One of the things, especially with Oklahoma getting to the playoffs, all the great things of Oklahoma's offense, the Baker Mayfields, the Kyler Murrays of the world, the Jalen Hurts of the world, their defense could never back it up. And when they played Alabama in the Orange Bowl in that playoff game, it was just Oklahoma scored 40 points and lost 62-42 or 62-48 because something like that. That's not the real score. I don't remember. Because their defense stunk. And it's gotta play defense. Gotta play defense. Their defense should be better this year. So, hey, maybe they're legit. Maybe they got a chance. But at the same time, it's how many times are we going to give you the benefit of the doubt? One of these days, you're just going to need to go win a playoff game or 2. Or the whole thing. But let's go ahead and get into Tulane. Tulane won 4 out of its last 5 regular season contests last year. Streaks again. And they lost to Nevada 38-27 in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, finishing 6-6. Quarterback Michael Practice coming off a season in which he threw 1,806 yards, 20 touchdowns with 8 interceptions in 10 contests. So, should be a fun one. Now, one of the bigger games today, maybe some of our viewers are into this one. Number 1, Alabama Crimson Tide, the defending national champions, obviously trying to go for back-to-back, against the number 14 Miami Hurricanes, who are not seeking to win the Big Ten West. Yep, that graphic's not right. Well, Miami lost the Cheez-It Bowl last year. Maybe we could put that on there. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. They're not, Miami is not in the Big Ten. Breaking news. So, Alabama Crimson Tide, obviously 13-0, won the national championship in Miami Stadium. Also won the Rose Bowl in AT&T Stadium, a little bit different. But one of the keys from Alabama, this whole Saban era has been, look at all these new players. Maybe they won't be good. No, they will, because they just keep piping in the 5 stars. And it's that way again. Also, new offensive coordinator, now that Steve Sarkisian has gone to Texas. Bill O'Brien, former Houston Texans head coach, will be the offensive coordinator for the Tides. But our key players, quarterback Bryce Young, running back Brian Robinson, and wide receiver John Mechie III, all among players, especially on that offense, that could have massive roles. But one of the big keys in this game, as we kind of transition talking about Miami, is this game is going to be a strength-on-strength game. Miami's offense is the strength of their team. Alabama's defense, especially with all the inexperience of the offense, at least at the beginning part of the season, is the strength of the Crimson Tide. And that's one thing people forgot about. Alabama's defense wasn't that great. Ole Miss really scored on them. Texas A&M even threw up some points in the beginning of the year. But as you got towards the end of the year, Alabama's defense was really, I think, what helped them. I mean, the offense was incredible, and that's what won it, but the defense was such a huge factor. And this defense should be really good again this year. I mean, it's Nick Saban, so you got to believe in that defense. So it should be a fun one. This one is the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic, if I didn't already mention it, in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Alrighty, next up we got a classic Big Ten matchup. a game, honestly, I'm looking really forward to in the 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, middle of the day hour time slot. Number 17, Indiana versus number 18, Iowa. This one will be in Kinnick Stadium, like we said, on the Big Ten Network. So, this is the first meeting between the two teams since 2018. Last time Iowa defeated Indiana 42-16. Let's talk about Indiana. They could potentially be, if they're good, a storyline of this season. They were certainly a storyline of 2020 from really beginning to end, if you think about it, because that opening weekend of the Big Ten, you have like the stretching touchdown for Indiana to knock off and shock Penn State as Penn State starts to slide and Indiana started to win. Indiana finished the season 6-2, 6-1 in Big Ten play. They lost that Outback Bowl to Ole Miss. Hoosiers are coming off their best season in decades. They finished ranked number 12. This is that last season was their first time ending the season in the final AP poll since 1988. Big part of Indiana's breakthrough, kind of shocking season last year was the play of Michael Penix Jr., their quarterback. He tore his ACL in November, but should be ready to start today. And then this is also Coach Tom Allen, who's really rebuilt and kind of reformed this Hoosiers program. Also, defensive coach, put up a top 20 scoring defense. Now for the Iowa Hawkeyes, the 2020 season they went 6-2. They're going to play in the Music City Bowl, but it got canceled because Missouri had COVID. And last year we weren't rescheduling bowl games, and well, it fortunately didn't happen to any of the big ones that mattered, like the national championship. But they just canceled the Music City Bowl. Nothing to say about that. That's pretty much it. Iowa returns an all Big Ten first-team running back, Tyler Goodson, who rushed for 762 yards and 7 touchdowns in that abbreviated season. Keep that in mind. Other than that, another streaky team. Iowa started 2020 off slowly, but finished strong as it lost its first 2 games before winning its last 6. The streaks are a theme of last year. Maybe this year won't be as wild, but it is 2021. We've seen crazier things. Alrighty, next up, this game is really interesting, at least for me. Actually, no, it's not. It's the next game, but whatever. Okay, first before we get to the Texas game, I'll go ahead and let you know, we got West Virginia, Maryland, a rivalry game. And fun fact, I didn't know that. And here, let's just go on a tangent for a second. Apparently, I'm reading the notes. They played. West Virginia leads the all-time series 28-22-2. They played 52 times. They're really close to each other. They're rivals. I had no idea, which is kind of one of the frowny things about all the conference stuff is because a lot of rivalries don't get played anymore. I could totally get how a younger child wouldn't even know that really Texas and Texas A&M are that big of rivals because they don't play anymore. But now they're in the SEC, so they will. So surprise, it's coming back. But for West Virginia, Maryland, oh well. But not as big of a deal, at least in my opinion. Don't tell them I said that. So it's going to be at Capital One Field, which is Maryland's home stadium, in case you didn't know with the sponsorship stuff. It's 2:30 on ESPN. So last year, West Virginia went 6-4, 4-4 in Big 12 play. As for West Virginia, their defense is the strength of their team, ranked first in the nation in passing defense, closing the season allowing 159.6 yards on average. Only 2 teams top 200 passing yards against the Mountaineers, which is quite an accomplishment if you think about, they play in the Big 12, which is so offensive driven, and yet they had such an incredible defense. And then we'll see offense. They'll have to rely on their all-around talent of running back Letty Brown. He finished second in Big 12 rushing yards, 1,010 yards from scrimmage, and 11 touchdowns. And then for Maryland, they went 2-3. Maryland, really a team that felt the effects of COVID last year. Also, side note, I can get off topic, FYI. COVID will definitely be, and actually, I'll just go ahead and mention it. If you didn't already know, Lane Kiffin tested positive for COVID. It was just on ESPN. So he won't be coaching. This is a real big, 180 degrees turn from the Maryland game. So he won't, he's going to not be at the game on Monday. He is vaccinated, and we know that because he came out this summer and said his whole team is vaccinated, 100%, all the staff, all the coaches. So that would include him. He's the head coach of the team. At least one would think. I don't know. I don't have his medical records. But, which is kind of my greater point of saying nobody likes to talk about COVID. And so we're not going to talk, unless it's a major storyline like Lane Kiffin, I'm not going to mention it because I'm here to talk about football. And that's more fun to me. If I wanted to talk about COVID, I'd go work for CNN or Fox News. But here we are. Let's get back to it because that was a big swing. So Maryland felt the effects of COVID. That was why we got off topic. And they only played 5 games. They went 2-3. 6 straight season of being under 500. Now they only played 5 games, so I guess we give them a break. Talia Tagovailoa, younger brother of Tua, as you know, they mention every time they do a Maryland game. It's like that's like the first thing they mention. He threw for 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions in that weird season for Maryland last year. But they play West Virginia. This should be an interesting game on ESPN. Now for one of the games that really could just change some perceptions of things. I think this is one of the better games of the day. Is number 21 Texas versus number 23 Louisiana. Also, I think it's kind of funny. I mean, maybe Louisiana Lafayette is just going by Louisiana now, like they're just claiming it. Since I guess you have Louisiana State, I guess they're just going to be the Louisiana. But then it's also like, I just think it's funny because like ESPN and CBS have been using it. And it's like, no, I think you're just using. Or no, it's Fox. They keep calling them Louisiana, and I'm like, who is that? And I think it's just because they want the fan that wouldn't really know be like, oh, it's Louisiana versus Texas. Well, this is a big game. No, it actually is a big game because Louisiana Lafayette is ranked. It'll be in Darrell K. Texas Memorial Stadium, where we've done a Patrick Party before, at 3:30 on Fox. This will be right after that Penn State Wisconsin game on Fox. FYIs. So Texas went 7-5 or 7-3. My bad. Last season 5-3 in Big 12 play and won the Alamo Bowl. And they fired their coach. Tom Herman is out. And they brought in Steve Sarkisian, who takes the reins as head coach for the first time since he was let go from USC in 2015. So, I mean, I feel like, oh my God, you won the Alamo Bowl. Like, that's pretty good. Like, I'm not going to get fired. Psych, you are. And we're bringing in Steve Sarkisian. That offense, you know, all their social media stuff, it's been like, all gas, no brakes. So that should be fun to see. We'll see how Steve Sarkisian does. Obviously, everyone loved him for all the great things he did at Alabama, and they did. They had a really great offense, but then it's also like, I feel like a lot of people could be the offensive. I mean, no disrespect to Steve Sarkisian, but I feel like a lot of people could be the offensive coordinator at Alabama, especially last year. I mean, think of all the talent they had, all the NFL talent they had on that team. But we'll see. I mean, it could work. Texas running back Brian Johnson went over his last 4 games of 2020. He had 522 yards. So he could be a big factor for Texas in this game and this also just in general in this offense. And then they were ranked number 95. Wait, what? I don't know. Their defense should also be pretty good. Just leave it at that. Now, Louisiana Lafayette, their coach Billy Napier was obviously in the news a lot this offseason. In the last couple offseasons of, maybe he'll go take this job. Maybe he'll go take this job. He interviewed for this job. I don't really know where he interviewed. I'm not the people interviewing him. I mean, people mentioned him for Auburn. I don't know if we interviewed him. Frankly, I don't care. I like the coach we have. But his name's been in the news. All that to say. His name's been in the news. Which is good for Louisiana Lafayette. Last year they went 10-1, 7-1 in the Sun Belt, and won the First Responders Bowl. And he's obviously, Billy Napier's obviously one of the rising coaches in his profession. If your name's even going to be mentioned in the Auburn job or mentioned in the Mississippi State job 2 years ago, then you're good at your job and you're a rising star because you're getting mentioned for all these SEC jobs. So congratulations to him. The Raging Cajuns ranked number 1 nationally in returning production according to ESPN's adjusted returning production metric. That includes 10 starters on both sides of the ball with veteran quarterback Levi Lewis among them. So that's something that I've kind of been reading with this game is that Texas, new offense, new head coach, they had some transfer portal deals, and the Raging Cajuns are bringing back, obviously, the most of anyone else. So it's like, if this was the chance... Now, let's remember this. I totally forgot this until I read this. Louisiana Lafayette beat Iowa State, who won the Fiesta Bowl last year 31-14 to start the season. They're fully capable of winning this game. This could be a really good game. And especially with Texas's inexperience and Louisiana Lafayette's experience. I think experience was a huge factor last season, maybe not as much this year with the full off season. But, I think this could be a really good game for sure. Even though you might just think like, Texas versus this Louisiana Lafayette team. Like, no, I think it's going to be a good game. All right, next up we have Purdue and Oregon State. Purdue and Oregon State, they both have weren't very good last year. They kind of didn't get up to expectations. Now, Purdue actually had some expectations because really since that Music City Bowl and Auburn just blew them to Kingdom Come, they, haven't been very good since, which, it's like, it's Purdue, so whatever. Maybe their coach should have taken that Louisville job. Anyways, Oregon State went 2-5. Purdue went 2-4. They both bring back, the Beavers returned 18 starters, 9 on each side of the ball, 87% of their total production from a season ago. So Oregon State should be better. I really think they beat Oregon last year. I could totally be making that up in my head. They beat Oregon in the last 2 years. They beat them at least once. And then for Purdue, a lot of these teams, it's like the thing where it's like, okay, they won 2 conference games. That sucks. But then it's like if you play 4 non-conference games, then that's 6-6 and you're in a bowl game. So it didn't help a lot of these teams that there weren't the easy games, especially with these teams because Big Ten and Pac-12 were the last 2 to play. So it was like, we're going to play all these games right now and you better be ready. So this should be a fun one. This will be on Fox Sports 1 at the 6 o'clock hour, as we've now started doing the games in the 6 o'clock hour. On ESPN, we'll have Texas Tech and Houston. This one will be in NRG Stadium, where the Houston Texans play, and the Texas Auto Care Kickoff, whatever you want to call it. So it should be, I think this one should be good. Now, both Texas Tech and Houston have struggled, especially Houston. Houston's coach, Dana Holgorsen, he left West Virginia to go to Houston. Everyone was like, what in the world? But then they haven't been very good, so what in the world? But, we'll see. Matt Wells and Dana Holgorsen, they're both entering their 3rd season at their respective programs, and they've kind of been underwhelming. The Red Raiders have been 8-14 in the last 2 seasons. And then for the Cougars in Houston, 7-13. Now, Houston's been in the news with all the Big 12 moving around stuff, so that should be fascinating to see what goes on. We'll see. Okay, we'll just find out. That's really all I have to say about that. That should be an interesting game, and that's really it. Could be a potential Big 12 game one day, though. So get excited, Houston and Texas Tech. Alrighty, we got a big one. Auburn takes on Akron in the start of the Bryan Harsin era at Auburn. Everyone keeps talking about, the era's starting at A-Day, or this is the real start at spring practice, or this is the real start of the Bryan Harsin fall camp. Well, regardless of what you think, it actually starts tonight, whether you want it to or not. So, Akron is not good at football. I just feel like that's a disclaimer. They're really not good at football. I have a funny tidbit to read about Akron in a minute for our Behind Enemy Line segment. But Auburn, it's the start of the Bryan Harsin era. I've said it 5 times now. There's going to be a lot of things to look at. This defense, really with tonight, and we have a whole segment what to watch for. So really, I'm not saying a lot right here because the second half of the show is going to be dedicated to just this game. But it's more about execution and are we playing our best versus who we're playing against. But we're going to talk about this game a whole lot more. So if you're an Auburn fan, you're like, he did all of that just to talk about Auburn for 5 seconds, because the second half of the show is dedicated to really just this game. Alrighty, next up we have LSU and UCLA. So UCLA, already want to know, blew out Hawaii. There was nobody at the Rose Bowl to watch them do that, but go UCLA. This could be a very interesting team. A lot of people think if Chip Kelly's going to get it done at UCLA, now's the time. We'll find out. Number 16, LSU, the Bayou Bengals, who've had a tough week. They were practicing, I think, in Houston, and then they went to LA for the Rose Bowl with all this hurricane stuff. They're number 16 in the country. They're 2-5. A lot of people have been talking about Ed Orgeron and this one of what team are we more likely to see? A team kind of like that 2019 team or last year's team? Frankly, I think it's some of both. That kind of just makes the most sense to me. But we'll find out. Here's the thing. You might be like, he sucks. The 19 year was a perfect storm, blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the deal. He has won a national championship, and that counts for something. How many active coaches have won a national championship? Not a whole bunch. Especially, really not that much, if you think about it. So we'll see. All that to say, it should be a fun game. In the Rose Bowl, I think there'll be a lot of Tiger fans there. Maybe not because of the hurricane, but that would have been a fun trip because you think about it, you get to go to LA and it's Labor Day weekend, you get an extra day. So it should be a lot of fun. UCLA could surprise people. This game, LSU's a 2.5-point favorite, and we're going to go through all the over-unders and all the favorites and stuff during Bingham's Bets, but I think this is going to be a good game. That's really all I have to say. Next up, we have BYU and Arizona. BYU had that great season last year under Zach Wilson, goes number 2 overall in the NFL draft, goes to the Jets. Now what? Well, now they play Arizona to kick off the season. This is in Allegiant Stadium, which is, I'll go ahead and reveal it, is where we're going to make our picks for our Sunday and Monday games, our Florida State Notre Dame, which we'll talk about in a second, and then the Ole Miss Louisville game, now not with Lane Kiffin. All that to say, they're playing in Allegiant Stadium too, but they're playing tonight. It'll be at 9:30 on ESPN. BYU had the great season last year. Arizona now has a new head coach since Kevin Sumlin is out. That did not work, even though I was like, oh, maybe it'll work. Like, I think this could really, he was kind of good at Texas A&M. No, it didn't. Which it also hasn't helped for Arizona that Arizona State and Herm Edwards have really been pretty decent the last couple of years. So, yeah, that's pretty much this game. BYU's a pretty good favorite in this one, but we'll see. Maybe Arizona will start it off pretty good with their new head coach. Now we move to our Sunday slate. There's only one game. NFL starts next weekend, so college is like, we'll have a game. It's Labor Day weekend. And it's number 9, Notre Dame Fighting Irish, went to the Rose Bowl, went to the playoff last year, traveling down to Doak Campbell Stadium to take on the Florida State Seminoles. Yeah, I mentioned Notre Dame had the great year last year, got blown out in the playoff game. We've seen it happen before, but we'll see if Brian Kelly can get back to that point and maybe try it again this year. As for Florida State, like, when are they going to be good again? Like, it's been a whole mess. Like, I mean, clearly, multiple people have said this since he's left, but when you have a head coach that's won a national championship at your program, and he just up and leaves, and it doesn't look that bad, he just up and leaves and goes to another school where he hadn't won a national championship, it's kind of like, I think he knows something. I mean, he was the head coach. And they've struggled since. One big problem with Florida State has always been like they've just had lots of penalties. Like, just play some clean football. We'll see if they improve. This is a home game, a huge opportunity on Sunday night, a prime time slot. No other games are on. So we'll see what Florida State can do. Florida State will also be honoring Bobby Bowden, who passed away during the offseason. They have a little logo of his Sun hat that he used to wear. It's a patch on their jerseys. It'll be on the back of their helmet. They're painting it on the field. So that's a nice gesture to truly the coach that built that program into what it is today. And then we have the game that's really just hit all the headlines. I mean, Lane Kiffin was just on College Game Day on my TV to the right. And so, I don't know how much that changes, if anything. I guess he's not calling the plays anymore, but that's why you have assistant head coaches. So, our final game I guess this is now the Monday matchup, is Ole Miss versus Louisville. This game will also be in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Ole Miss announced to everyone that they had the 100% vaccination thing. They didn't lie. You wouldn't do that. But he still got COVID, because who knows with this COVID mess. Should be a good game. Ole Miss, that offense, Matt Corral, everyone's been talking about it all season. Everyone's like, well, this is the team that's going to challenge Alabama. Maybe they'll win the West. Blah, blah, blah. See it when I believe it. That's kind of how I feel about this one. I think Auburn will even beat them, but we'll see. We will see. And then for Louisville, they've kind of been up and down. They've had some big wins. They've had some big losses. I don't really know what to think of Louisville, to be completely honest with you. And then the Patrick Party's game of the week. Shocker. It's number 5 Georgia and number 3 Clemson and the mayonnaise kickoff game. We love it. I actually looked in our fridge. We typically buy Duke's mayonnaise, and I was going to plop it. I was going to be and the game of the week, I was going to plop it on the mayonnaise. But then the graphic covers it up, and we didn't have mayonnaise in the fridge, so that idea quickly died. But the game of the week, we've been hearing about it all summer. ESPN's been running this commercial all week. Huge game in Charlotte. Should be a sellout crowd. Fans are all back. Game day's there. What to look for in this game? Well, Trevor Lawrence is gone. Clemson has a whole, and so is Travis Etienne, which I also feel like is really big. Not just, Trevor Lawrence is the quarterback, blah, blah, blah. But DJ Uguala, I can't even say his name. But DJ, their quarterback, he has played before. He played in that big game against Notre Dame. Now they lost. It was a really good game. Remember that game? That was when it was on NBC, and that is when that's when Biden won the presidency. And so then NBC in the middle of the game is like, psych, we're going to watch Biden talk instead of show the football game. And then everyone got really mad on Twitter. Anyways, I wonder what their ad people did, like all the commercials. I would have been mad about that if I was like a company that paid all this money to be on the big Notre Dame Clemson game and then didn't get my ad ran because it was on the USA channel. All that to say, he's played before on a big stage. And then for Georgia, last year was just like weird. They started with multiple different quarterbacks, and then they're like, okay, like, I guess we'll play JT Daniels. And then they started winning and go win the Peach Bowl. And now everyone thinks he's going to be great and win the Heisman. We'll see. They have a lot of talent coming back. They're obviously great recruiters. This is a big game, and everyone's already talking about, like, well, if this team loses, can they... If this team loses, can they still make the playoffs? If this team loses, can they still make the playoffs? Like, can we just watch the game? Like, my Lord. So, we'll watch it. Honestly, I'm not even going to watch this game tonight because Auburn football, I'll be there in Jordan-Hare Stadium watching that game. But, nonetheless, this should be a good game. And that's going to do it for our Saturday slate. And now we go into our player profiles. So we have now we're like transitioning to where I'm going to talk about all Auburn and Akron. So player profiles. First up, we have the quarterback, Bo Nix, entering his junior season. So one of the big things is that this is his third straight. Well, he's played 3 seasons, and he's had 3 different offensive coordinators being. Okay, but here's the thing. So it was more of Gus Malzahn than Kenny Dillingham in that 19 year. And then Dillingham left and went to Florida State. After Mike Norvell left Memphis and went to Florida State, Auburn brings in Chad Morris, number 2. That didn't really work, resulting in both of them not being in Auburn anymore. And then number 3 is Mike Bobo, and then Bryan Harsin being the head coach. Big thing with Bo Nix. Okay, so it kind of goes both ways here because so much of a lot of the progression is the fundamentals and Mike Bobo and Bryan Harsin like teaching him, figuring it out, kumbaya, whatever works, to kind of get some of his tendencies of like running to the right and getting outside the pocket, fixing that. But then a lot of that's also the offensive line because it's so much easier, obviously, to play if you're not running around for your life every 5 seconds. So it's a back and forth. Now, one thing is he needs to complete more than, he needs to get over that 60% in passing. And we'll see. I think the passing attack, it's a brand new offense for Bryan Harsin, as you can imagine. A lot more uses of the tight ends. A lot of people, and now I'm getting off topic of Bo Nix, but a lot more uses of the tight ends because the wide receivers are so inexperienced. We do have Demetrius Robinson coming in, but he's never played at Auburn, and still, that's one receiver out of all of them, and it's just, they're great, but they're just inexperienced. So Auburn looks like they could use their experienced tight ends a lot more to throw in the passing game, which is something Auburn fans have complained about and previous staffs of, well, we never thought of the tight ends. Well, surprised now you are. And then we'll see. Nix is a really good runner. They brought TJ Finley in the offseason. People were like, oh, it's a battle. But then it's like, no, it's not. Nix is the starter. Big thing with Finley, though, is he's really, in my opinion, more of just a true backup. Maybe he'll play tonight in some kind of cleanup time. I think Nix is going to get the majority of the minutes in this game, simply just because with this new offense, we need as many reps as we can get these first 2 games to kind of fix as much as we can prior to the big one in Happy Valley in Pennsylvania. So we'll see with Nix. I'm a believer in him. One thing is with TJ Finley, he's bigger and taller, and he's more of a pocket pack. Like, there's not like a package you run like just for Nix. Like in other years, it was like Jarrett Stidham. Like, he could run if he needed to, but he more kind of stood back and threw or handed the ball off. And then it's like, oh, you'd bring in Malik Willis and he'd like run around kind of more like Nick Marshall. That's not really the case here because Bo Nix is a good runner. So yeah, that's it on Nix. For the defensive side, we have our dynamic duo, our linebackers, Owen Papo and Zacoby McClain, both look to lead the defense in year 2. Big thing with this defense, with Derek Mason, it's so scheme heavy. All the things. It's going to be a lot more complicated, I think, for them. And since the linebackers are considered the quarterback of the defense, a lot of that falls to them. But then a lot of, I think they both should get a lot of action this year because a lot of the schemes that he runs kind of funnel into the linebackers. So I think they can have big seasons. A big thing in this first game is, can we execute the defense? Is everyone standing where they need to? Because it's going to be a lot of a mental game here. Because, Auburn has great players. Owen Papo and Zacoby McClain are great players, but it's just pretty much a 180 from what we were doing with Kevin Steele, and it's just a lot more to think about pre-snap. So it should be interesting to see, but that's our dynamic duos. Our dynamic duo is Zacoby McClain and Owen Papo, and then our other player profile is quarterback Bo Nix. So now we're going to go behind enemy lines. Typically in this segment, or at least the idea I had in my head, is I'm going to break down this film or something, or really get into details about Auburn's opponent. Well, we're playing the Akron Zips, and I really didn't know what I was going to talk about. And then, I'm going to be honest, this is not my own. I did not do this research. I was reading the Auburn Observer, Justin Ferguson, and Painter Sharpless subscribe, and they had a mailbag, and someone asked him about Akron's mascot. And this is the research he did, and I'm quoting this. So this is from him. Akron is called the Zips because it's short for zippers, like on your pants or something. Seriously, Akron's biggest cultural export besides LeBron James is B.F. Goodrich, a company that made metal zippers along with its much more famous tires. Zippers won in a Name the Team contest in 1925 over the likes of the Golden Blue Devils, Tip Toppers, Rubbernecks, Hillbillies, Kangaroos. Yeah. Akron shortened zippers to zips in 1950. Because it's hard to have a mascot of a zipper, one of those nicknames stuck as Zip's mascot. Zippy is a kangaroo. And according to Wikipedia, Zippy is one of only 8 female college mascots in the U.S. The more you know. So that is our behind enemy line segment for today. The origin of Zippy and the zippers and now kangaroos. Akron for you. Now, Akron also has the Auburn connection a little bit. Terry Bowden, we all remember Terry Bowden, who is now playing a big game at Kentucky today to kick off his season at his new school. Terry Bowden coached at Akron. He actually, they won a bowl game with him. He had some success, but he's not there anymore. So yay, go Terry Bowden and go Akron. Akron sucks. I should probably say that, but they do. They're not good. Which is going to transition to us into our next segment, which is what to watch for, because it's such a talent mismatch. Akron, so it's not like they're a group of 5 school, they're smaller, Auburn's just going to be better than them and just talent mismatch win. No, they actually aren't good. Even for that, group of 5, they are truly one of the worst teams in the FBS. They didn't win last year. Maybe they win this year. I don't know. They're just not good. That's really the only nice way to... Well, that's not nice, but that's the deal. So that transitioned to us into our next segment, which is what to watch for. Auburn's going to beat this team. It's not going to be a good game. If it's a good game, oh, God. Hope not. So what to watch for? Things I would look for. Offense, typically... the offense should be able to score whatever they want. A big thing is, is Auburn consistently moving the ball, or is Akron actually stopping Auburn? And is it more of Auburn shooting themselves in the foot, or is it Akron's actually stopping these plays? A big thing with offense and defense is execution. It's dramatically different from last season for offense and defense. Are we executing the plays? Are we shooting ourselves in the foot? Are we lining up in the right spots? A lot of that kind of thing. Like we said, it's a talent mismatch. For the defense, I look at both of the lines. a pass protection, something you could look at, but then at the same time, it's just like, it's Akron. So it's like, there's only so much you can really look for. A big thing is playing clean games. We're not turning the ball over. We're not shooting ourselves in the foot. We're not making silly mistakes. Like, we're finishing drives. We're not like getting stopped by Akron. Like, we can, if we want to move the ball, we can, kind of stuff. Same kind of thing with next week. Both these weeks are kind of tune-up weeks for the Penn State game. And, it's kind of been brought up of, well, Penn State's playing Wisconsin. They're going to have to throw out the whole playbook week 1 to win this game, and Auburn's going to know so much about Penn State. But Penn State's going to also know a whole lot about themselves. Penn State's going to know where their football team's at in a couple hours. Auburn, not so much. Auburn's first real test is in Happy Valley on the road in that whiteout, condition. So that, that's kind of the thing, is it kind of goes both ways. Auburn will be able to prepare more for Penn State, but Penn State will know who they are. Whereas Auburn, not so much. I mean, a little bit, but you are playing Alabama State and Akron. So that's what's to watch for tonight. And now we kind of get into our quick segment of Bingham's Bets. So we're going to go through each of the games in Saturday slate and quickly kind of run through over-under, the spread. I'll make a prediction or two, and we'll kind of fly through it because we're starting to run out of time, which isn't a bad thing. So, Bingham's Bets first game, as we said, that Wisconsin-Penn State game in Camp Randall. Spread, Badgers are a 5.5-point favorite. Over-under is 50 points, meaning about each team scores roughly 25-ish. I'm going to take the under on this one. I'm kind of going for classic Big Ten football. And then for the spread, I don't remember who I picked, to be completely honest, but, well, actually, I'm not picking, because I'm picking later. Okay, we're just going to do over-under on this. My bad. Okay, so over-under, I'm going to go under on this one, under 50 points. Oklahoma and Tulane, 68.5 points. That's roughly about 70, which means 35 for each team. I'm going to take the under on this one just because I don't think Tulane's going to score that much. So we'll go under for Oklahoma-Tulane. Oklahoma is a 31.5-point favorite. Next up, we have number 1 Alabama Crimson Tide versus the number 14 Miami Hurricanes. Crimson Tide are a 19.5-point favorite. 61 points is the over-under. That would mean like a 40 to 20-ish kind of game. I'm going to take... this is hard to think about, because if you think about it, Alabama's offense is inexperienced, but there's a lot of talent. Miami will likely score, but Alabama has a really good defense. I'm going to take the under on this one, too. I've done a lot of unders today. Under of 61 points for Alabama and Miami. Next up, we have Indiana and Iowa. Indiana 17, Iowa 18. Hawkeyes are a 4-point favorite. 46 points is the over-under. I'm going to take this like screams to me classic Big Ten game. And I know I keep doing unders, but like this screams Big Ten, like 3-2 type game. Under. And I like the Hawkeyes too. You didn't hear that. All right, next we have over under 57 points for West Virginia, Maryland. I'm going to take the over on this one. Mountaineers are a 2.5-point favorite, and I'm really going to do that just because I haven't done it yet. And so that is really my philosophy on this game. I don't know a lot about this game. Texas UL Lafayette over under 58 points. That means they're both scoring about 30. Let's take over on this one too. But I'm going to tell you the spread. I'm going to take, for this one, I would take Louisiana in this one. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Texas wins, but I think this is going to be a close game. Next up, we got Purdue and Oregon State. Purdue is a 7-point favorite, and the over-under is 68.5. I'm going to take under on this one, too. I just don't know how good these teams are, so I don't know if they're really going to score that much. I would, with the spread, take the Boilermakers in this one. Alrighty, next up we got Texas Tech and Houston. Alrighty, the spread, Cougars are a 1.5-point favorite, basically just to pick them. And then over-under is 64.5 points. It's Texas Tech and Houston. You feel like there's going to be a lot of offense there. Over. Next up, you have Auburn and Akron. There's no money line on this one, which I like from Caesars. Couldn't find one. Auburn's a 37.5-point favorite. I'm going to take Akron on that. Auburn could win by 35 and lose that. You know, These are the fascinating ones to me when it's like Alabama's at 55.5. Alabama could win 49-0. I'm gonna take Akron on that one. Over under 55.5 points. I do think Auburn will score a decent amount. I'm gonna take the over on that one. Next up, we have LSU and UCLA. Over under 65. Tigers are 2.5 point favorite. Basically a pick 'em. Over under. I'm liking. Okay, LSU's had some injuries with the quarterback. UCLA, I don't really know. Let's go under on this one. This one could be low scoring in the Rose Bowl at night on Fox. BYU, Arizona. Cougars are 12.5 point favorite. I like that. 54 points over under. Let's take over on this one. I'm feeling it. And then we go into our Sunday game. Fighting Irish are 7-point favorite. Take that and put some more numbers on it. And then 55.5. I'm gonna go over, slightly over. Then we have Ole Miss and Louisville. The Rebels are a 10-point favorite. Lane Kiffin won't be there. I don't know how big of a difference that makes. I mean, definitely some. So our over/under for this one is 75.5 points. That's a lot of points. Now, Ole Miss is supposed to have a really good offense, and their defense should suck. And that's the key. Their defense sucks, which means Louisville should score over. That's a big over, too. Yeah. And then, last but not least, that Georgia-Clemson game. Tigers are a 3-point favorite. Basically a pick 'em. I think this is going to be a really good game. At least I kind of hope it's a really good game, even though I'm not going to be able to watch it. 51 points. I'm going to take under, but I'm thinking like right there. Like somewhere in the 20s for both of these schools. And so that's going to do it for Bingham's Bets. And with that pretty much concludes our show. We got one thing left, and that's our Patrick Party picks. And we'll talk about that in a second. Should be a really good college football weekend. Just some promotional stuff real quick. Patrick Party Podcast will come out tomorrow morning. I'll film it tonight after the Auburn game, kind of my instant breakdowns. Maybe on Monday we'll even have like a story on patrickparty.com. And then remember, for Patrick Party Pregame, every Saturday morning from 8 to 9 on our new, this is all new for this season, variety of locations: Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, patrickparty.com. So should be all kinds of fun here on the Patrick Party all season long. We thank you for joining us for our opening broadcast as we kick off the 2021 college football season. Fans are back. I am ecstatic to be back in our regular seats in Jordan-Hare Stadium. Should be a lot of fun. Also, I have some extra little decal stickers. So if you want one, like, just message me and I'd be happy to send them your way. I just need your like address and I'll mail it to you, or unless you like live near me. So that's gonna do it. So we're about to make our Patrick Party picks from Bryce Canyon National Park. That's gonna do it for our Patrick Party pregame as we kick off the 2021 college football season. Enjoy this college football opening weekend. Welcome to the Patrick Party's kickoff to the 2021 college football season here at Bryce Canyon's National Park. So let's go ahead and get this one started with the big noon game on Fox to kick off the year. Penn State, Wisconsin. Penn State will play Auburn later in the year in State College. Man, I think they're going to be undefeated going into that matchup. I like the Nittany Lions over the Wisconsin Badgers. Then you have Stanford versus Kansas State, another big non-conference matchup. I'm going to have to go with Kansas State in this one. They've had a pretty good team the last couple of years. We'll see what's up with the Cardinals. They're kind of hit or miss. Then you have Alabama versus Miami. This is a big one. This is the Chick-fil-A kickoff game. This will be in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I like the Tide big in this one, although Miami has really slowly improved, especially with Rhett Lashley as their offensive coordinator. I'm going to have to go with the Tide pretty big in that one. You have another Big Ten matchup, Indiana, Iowa. This is a big one. Indiana had such a big year last year, but I'm definitely going to have to go with the Iowa Hawkeyes in this one. Then we'll go ahead and get to the Auburn-Akron game. Akron's one of the worst teams in the FBS level. I'm going to have to go with the Tigers big and Bryan Harsin's debut. And the Texas kickoff in Houston. You have Houston versus the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Texas Tech's a little all over the place too. I'm going to have to go with Houston in this one. Then you have the game of the weekend. Georgia, Clemson. This is the Dukes Mayo Classic. This one will be in Charlotte. Weird title, but a big-time game between Dabo Swinney and Kirby Smart's teams. Everyone thinks Georgia's going to be really, really good this year. Clemson's good every year. I'm going to have to go with the Tigers in this one because I simply just don't want Georgia to win. That's going to do it here for the Patrick Party as we kick off the 2021 college football season.